This podcast is recorded on Aboriginal land. We pay our respects to elders past and present and recognise that sovereignty was never ceded. Welcome back to the Radical Online Leftist Pipeline podcast. My name is Mitch Alexander.
My name's Tom Tannegy.
My name's Celeste Little.
And I'm Jordan Vanden Lam.
Said that with such authoritative stank.
I thought you
I'm
were
the last host to say my name.
I thought you were saying that you were purple pingers.
I'm switching it up. I'm switching it up.
Are you now doxing you? Are you doxing yourself?
It's my full government name, no middle name. That is a thing.
I hear you can get arrested for this.
Should have said influencer at the end, like last time, Tom.
Influencer, fuck yeah, no.
Yeah, please. So despite the week that Australia and the world has seemingly had, I wanted to start with two little bits of good news up top. Kneecap had a show at Fed Square, and Rodrigo Duterte was arrested by the ICC for crimes against humanity for the extrajudicial killing.
What are the ICC doing? Doing the actual arresting part? No, it wasn't meant to be part of the program. They weren't meant to do any of the things.
I know. There's one headline from The Guardian, Rodrigo Duterte in ICC custody after arrival in the Netherlands. It's like, yeah, that's what fucking happens. Just as a quick thing, if anyone didn't know who Duterte is, the former president of the Philippines, who went on this massively fascistic regime where he just empowered cops and citizens to kill drug users, let alone drug dealers, which is usually the first step. He bragged about killing them himself when he was a mayor of a small town. Just an evil, evil man. And I just want to spend a second thinking about the idea that he thought he could go around Europe, seeing the rest of the world, seeing Benjamin Netanyahu from Israel and Trump and Biden and all the rest, thought that he also could get around. Now, we know why he was arrested and why he's going to get charged. It's because he's not a white Western leader. He's from the global South, quote unquote. And they need to have some sort of legitimacy still, considering how hard it's been with Israel and Netanyahu. But he is still a fucking evil man.
Yeah.
And as much as I'm an abolitionist, this still fills me with hope in the current circumstances where an international criminal court exists, he can get arrested. And in equally as good news, Kneecap at Fed Square put on a free show.
Duterte was an out-and-out fascist. Yeah, absolutely. If people haven't read much or listening to the podcast, listeners haven't read much about the extrajudicial killings of dealers, drug addicts, anyone perceived to be drug addicts, anyone living in a ghetto who wanted to be who got ratted on by their neighbour, which often happened for political reasons, you know what I mean, or social reasons. It was that kind of very fascist climate. It was an absolute reign of terror in that society, and the poorest people were hit the hardest. Trail of misery and tears and missing family members left behind. So to see that man get arrested, I think we don't have much faith in the machinery of the international order as regards justice at the moment, particularly over the past few years. But naively or not, when you see something like that happen, it's good. It's a good thing. It is a good thing. I hope he burns in hell.
Yeah, guaranteed. But Celeste, you wanted to chat about this Kneecap resurgence, and I mean, I want to hear about it because I think a lot of people who aren't in at least the hip hop scene and the sort of the broader popular culture for music hadn't really heard about Kneecap until their very pro-Palestine views were sort of coming out. Same with Bob Villain for me, where it's just I was seeing them wrapped up in my political Instagram algorithm. But they're fucking massive, apparently, and people love them.
Yeah. And look, it's pretty clear I'm not really a hip hop person either. I've been a punk for a very, very long time. But I think that it was the same with me when I started seeing Kneecap content. It was with regards to various stands they were taking, and then their movie came out. Look, what I found fascinating over the past week, we've obviously had them sell out 3 shows here in Melbourne and put on a freebie for people at Fed Square. Seeing the footage from the Fed Square gathering was actually just incredible. It was people everywhere, and part of me, you know, had to firmly place her tongue in the cheek and say how nice it was that the city of Melbourne and Fed Square had organised what was a massive decolonisation rally in the middle of the city at a time when the Victorian government is doing all their anti-protest laws. But I think that it is pretty fascinating to watch Kneecap do this. Like, you know, not only have they taken strong pro-Palestine stances, which I think has been the gateway for a lot of people, but a lot of their messages are around, you know, language revitalization and decolonization. And, you know, they've used their music as a vehicle to express their Irish language and encourage others to do the same. So they work in solidarity. I know that they were very, very active in reaching out to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here and ensuring that merch was right, and they were working in collaboration and they were supporting language revitalization here. I just I just found it incredible that so many people rocked up. I do put a caution on this though, because I think that, you know, Australia, or people who live in this country, a lot of us do have, and I say us because I've got Irish heritage in the mix as well. A lot of us do have Irish heritage, and are looking to tap into it to, you know, buy this fascination, but don't miss their message with regards to the fact that, you know, an Indigenous language pretty much goes extinct every fortnight, and learning language, learning culture is a massive part of the decolonisation agenda, or at least engaging with it.
Yeah, hopefully, like, people that hear, you know, like their new favourite rap group from Ireland talking about this sort of thing can just make that next step. Which, and then, and all credit to Kneecap, they're trying to do it themselves. They say you need to make the next step. Like, they're pretty good with it.
Look, I think there's a definite cut through that they're actually achieving, and you see that manifested. Tens of thousands of people hanging around Fed Square on a 35-degree day. Like, you know, that's extraordinary. But,
why is a very obscure... It's almost like they should be labouring in obscurity because they have a very niche mission. They're great. I'm at a distance. I'm just sort of recently getting into them, but I have been told by mates into hip-hop. As a, you know, long veteran hip-hop head myself, I was often told by people from very early stages they were worth looking into. And indeed they are. They're really good. But I've noticed, like, this, for me, I've always felt like there's a Venn diagram that's almost a complete perfect circle of, like, overtly political and cringe most of the time. And it's a subjective thing too, isn't it? Because, like, I've always been involved in anti-fascist spaces. Everyone's into fucking punk and post-punk and this and that and the other. I've never been into it. I'm like a reggae dancehall sort of, you know what I mean? Like Afro beats, hip-hop kind of dude I've always been. And so, you know, your amazing is my cringe and vice versa. But in terms of relatable, overtly political, often those things are, you know, often I'm being sent music. It's like, well, yes, I agree with their politics, but I hate every second of what I'm hearing here. And so they're in that little, like, you know, just behind the eclipse, that little peak out the side there. Yes, they're overtly political. They're not cringe. They're actually really fun. And so that's why I think an act that's, you look at them and you look at their shtick and their content and you're like, I feel like you should be in obscurity, but you've become more wider. You managed to pack out Melbourne because you speak to that appetite for, please God, give us, particularly in these dire times, music that speaks to my politics but doesn't make me go, you know, have like goosebumps from sheer cringe. You know what I mean? Like, good, more power to them. I'm really happy to see acts like that. I hope that we see more in future. You know what I mean? All over.
Yeah. And look, I think that them selling out Melbourne 3 times was an actual genuine surprise to the dudes. Like, this is, you know, they didn't actually expect it. They chose a mid-sized venue. They were doing 2 shows. The fact that they just kept on selling it out and then packed another public space is quite extraordinary, but also I think speaks to the hunger that a lot of people feel with regards to trying to find their own place and trying to figure out where they stand within these movements, using music as a vehicle. So, yeah, it is pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty sick. It was also, very, very quiet in St Kilda a few nights ago. Completely unrelated.
All right, Taniki, do you want to talk about Cyclone Alfred?
Yeah, well, I'm sort of like the cultural attaché to Southeast Queensland, but you know what I mean? I can speak to issues outside of your Melbourne wanker bubble, you know?
Yeah, Queensland correspondent.
We cross now to we cross now to everyman Tom Taniki.
That's right.
Tom,
I get out here and
Queensland true tradie Tom Taniki is there reporting on the ground in Southeast Queensland, where real Australians are. Tom,
Farmer,
yeah. This just sounds like you're running for the National Party.
I'm I'm out here in real Australia. Well, actually, really, I've just been sitting at fucking home for most of the week. I mean, what Cyclone Alfred was for my extropical cyclone Alfred was for most people in this area, and we're talking about a huge area this affected. You had up to 500,000 people without power, and
Just quick, my partner looked up like the size of Cyclone Alfred, and in terms of just like length, it was half the height of America.
Whoa!
Like on America's like longest position from south to north, it covered half of it in terms of.
That's a big boy.
It was fucking huge.
It was huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it just also brought home that like Australia is so spaced out and sparse.
Yeah.
There's so much room.
Totally.
Here. Sorry.
Totally. I think fortunately, I think there was only one. It's not fortunate that someone lost their life, and they lost their life in a way that people often do in areas prone to flooding, which is driving their car during a moment of flooding. It's an extremely dangerous thing to do. But, obviously we're all thankful only one person lost their life. Huge amount of debris, huge amount of property damage. And so the reality for a lot of us was just sitting at home. And before that, going to the shops for a bit of a panic buy. So I got real COVID vibes from here. I was stuck in many of those moments. I mean, I went to the shops and I noticed the people filling up their trolleys with toilet paper.
Why is toilet paper the first thing to go every time?
It's so good.
Yeah.
There's some Freudian analysis I don't want to make.
There is. People did a lot of it.
But we're so ashamed of our assholes.
It's like, there were so many papers written about that. You know how much there's like wealth of them written about people trying to analyse why that happened.
I will starve to death before my butthole goes somewhat unclean for a bit. No.
I have a bidet. They're the best things ever invented.
Just get a bidet. Just get a bidet. But listen, so that gave me the sign of it. But then I think the most COVID reminiscent spectacle for me was sitting on my phone looking at assholes and kind of hating everyone. You know what I mean? I was back in that moment again, and I did a hell of a lot of that, obviously back in the pandemic. So that was a bit. Particularly one thing that got to me was the proliferation of. And I've always latently been shat off by this thing, but it really got to me this time. And I think because there was a greater than usual proliferation of videos like this coming out of Southeast Queensland, which is Aussie larrikins being fucking legends and ignoring the weather warnings and getting out there. And, you'll look up, you'll find a video on TikTok. It's got millions of views, like every piece of shit video does on TikTok, and it's like a viral thing, and it's got, I come from a land down under. Like, people are going, fuck the warnings by the government, Stephs. I'm getting out there. I'm going to surf the cyclone, I'm a legend. Yeah. Get out there. I'm going to. And there were heaps of videos like that, and I was annoyed by it. I sort of felt like it was like watching, because you're talking about people needing to collectively all get inside, not put additional burden on the emergency services, and just play your fucking role. Again, very COVID era sort of stuff. But people have this desire to just get out there and do their own thing. It makes them feel like they've got some agency over it. And I feel like it's just like watching people are going, legend, get out there. He's having a crack, He's sitting there in the water. He's getting barreled by the cyclonic swell. And it's like watching a monkey masturbating in the zoo and filming it and going, look at him, he's a legend, just jerking off, But then I
come from a land.
With that in the background. But then I thought, and I was writing about this for myself the other day. I wrote about some of this in Independent Australia. That's not fair to the monkey, because the monkey wanking in the zoo enclosure, he's not hurting anyone. So what I decided it's more like, it's like if...
It's not fair to the monkey.
It's not fair to the monkey. This is more like if Harambe, if we were all filming Harambe. You remember how Harambe, the viral monkey that grabbed a toddler and almost killed the fucking toddler before it got shot? Well, it's like if Harambe was wanking while he was doing that, and we were all filming Harambe and going, what a legend! See, he's not listening to the stiffs telling him about the wrong way to hold a toddler. He's getting out there and he's having a go. He's having a wank. God, you legend. I come from a... No, it didn't go like that.
Oh, my God.
That's what it's like. And I fucking hate these people. You know what I mean? I hate it, whether you're a peddler of it or you just share it and you go, hey, Aussies, see, we're legends. We're fearless. We don't mind the... You know, I think it's just fucking degeneracy. You know what I mean? You don't want to participate in everything. We're truly in the age of the individualist, you know, the pilled moron with main character syndrome. So that was my week. No power, cabin fever, hating everyone. But I'm back now. I didn't get dragged away by the cyclone, and I have even less hope than I ever did before for how we're going to handle the coming climate catastrophes.
I was gonna say, like, what that doesn't sound heaps different to how you've described your current predicament, just living in southeast Queensland, doing the pod, needing us as an outlet to all the shit you're seeing. But yeah, if Cyclone Alfred's taught us anything, it's that the way we will handle like incoming inevitable climate catastrophe if we don't change course is by filming ourselves getting out there and having a go.
Right.
Just getting out there, just like surfing like sand dunes at some point as well. Like instead of Mad Max cars, we'll just be having like boogie boards down dunes and shit.
That's right. Yeah, I'm going to put a GoPro to my head while I fly through a Category 5 hurricane. You know what I mean? Just like, just soaring. I'll put a cape on. That'll go viral. You know, I'll just soar over.
Horses blaring in the background.
Yeah.
One thing it threw up for me, though, which is a little bit different, is because I was in Darwin when Cyclone Carlos hit, for a union meeting of all things. And yeah, I think watching it, and, you know, Cyclone Carlos was downgraded to a tropical low before it hit as well, but we were all stuck inside for days. I think the hotel bar got drunk dry in that time because there wasn't anywhere else to go. We talk a lot about construction practices across the country, and one thing that really is sticking out to me is just, you know, Darwin with its building codes, with how it's set up to deal with those sorts of events, because they're more regular compared to how southeast Queensland has been able to weather it and the damage that we're seeing there, and things like trees just being uprooted. So even environmental choices that haven't been particularly wise. It does sort of scream to me we need to activate on the front of working with the land and looking at these sorts of catastrophes that are very much a part of our life.
Totally. Down in Surfers Paradise, you can see where they removed all the sand dunes. The beaches are gone.
Yeah,
they're literally gone. There's like cliff faces to the street now. You know, it's terrifying stuff to look at. It's like, you know, the ocean is now trying to claim basically all of these townships. I mean, I think the ocean would now like to eat up all of Surfers Paradise, which, you know, some people wouldn't argue.
Yeah, I'm not opposed.
But, you know.
So now, we're now on to the silver lining part of talking about Cyclone Alfred.
Yeah. On the construction thing, like I've gotten to a point where like someone will send me a picture of the inside of their rental or whatever, and I can tell that it's, you know, within 2 hours of Brisbane just by looking at the photo, which is, I feel, is wild. Like,
what are the
it's like usually just like evidently no insulation, like a wooden kind of. Like this is an internal photo. It is just a vibe, honestly. But you can just tell it's like the massive gaps between the doors and whatever in an interleading room. Like wood panels. Like it's just
I've
noticed in Queensland a rapid deterioration in the quality of the rentals. Yeah, the kind of stuff that you often post about the worst of the worst that you've been sent or that you've seen yourself, Jordan, I regularly have just seen at every single inspection I've ever been to. It's really bad out here, yeah.
For me, this one was like kind of nihilistic, and I hate that, but because I grew up in Lismore area, like Lismore, Ballina, Byron Bay, and that place was absolutely thrashed. But Lismore in particular was hit by flooding only a couple of years ago, and the state and federal government has not helped people. There are still some really great groups there squatting in Lismore because they don't have any fucking better options. There are still people waiting for insurance claims. There are still people waiting for promises of money from the government. There are still people waiting for rebuilds. And I don't know if, like, my hometown, a place I spent like years of my life growing up in, is going to recover from this.
No, exactly.
And this is what we miss in these fucking, like, from Melbourne, even from, like, say, Brisbane or whatever. But, like, there are smaller places where we legitimately have climate refugees already. We are already seeing the impacts of this shit. And only because I still have friends and family in the area do I have such a sort of a felt sense of how dire this shit can get, both in a really quick way. In a couple of years, across a week each time, shit just falls down and we lose townships. But also, it's still too long a time frame, I think, for people to really get it. Like, people aren't looking at Lismore as like, oh, fuck, oh, that's indicative of Australia. We got to do something. It's just like, oh, damn, Lismore, that sucks. It's like, this is fucking coming for all of us.
This is in down the road from you. Yeah. This is not some other bit, some other place, some other people. This is you. Yeah. I met a bloke. You know what? I was in a shopping centre and I met a bloke. I was in a shopping centre getting charged for my devices. You know what I mean? Like power out for days, they'd opened up, thankfully. I met another bloke in there getting charged on his devices. And he came up and he said, oh, you know, I appreciate your video work, mate.
Sick.
I remember, you know, you mentioned me in some of the work you did after the Northern Rivers flooding. And I'm like, did I? What did I say about you? And he said, oh, you may remember we chatted. I was the person who had to cut my way out of my own roof in Lismore with a knife in the flooding. And I'm like, oh, I do remember you, you know? And he said, and I said, so what's going on? How have you gone in this situation now? He's like, well, I live in my van now.
For fuck's sake.
You know. Yeah.
For fuck's sake.
After that, that's, you know, because of what you were just saying, which, you know, like that they didn't take care of the people. They said now he sort of lives, you know, just traveling around in the van and obviously had to deal with the next
shocking
climate catastrophe evidence. Just horrible. It really hit home. Dead. I was like, fuck.
Has anyone seen the news, like the most recent Lismore news at the moment? It was like a couple of days ago. I reckon Tuesday, was it?
Oh, yeah, that they're going to...
Yeah, so the New South Wales government, you know, Chris Minns has finally been made aware of the community in Lismore that is still living there. He's mad about it because people are squatting. So, you know, the government bought back, you know, hundreds of homes in the area. They were just empty. People needed a place to live, so people moved in to the houses and squatted there. Now Chris Minns is like, oh, there was a cyclone. You know, we have to waste valuable SES resources evacuating these people. We're going to go demolish the homes. Meanwhile, they were evacuated before anyone had to go there because members of the SES volunteers are part of the squatting group. And also
the squatting,
they're prioritizing demolishing the houses that are lived in rather than the hundreds of, you know, houses that they bought back that aren't lived in.
It's spiteful.
It's stupid. And then also we had Rose Jackson, the housing minister, come in and say, these are professional activists. They're from interstate and whatever. And I feel like if Rose Jackson doesn't realize that there are reasons that people might squat that aren't professional activism, I feel like that's her privilege just coming out and, you know, rearing its ugly head. People don't have a home. That's why they're living in those homes.
That's right. Some of those people were turned into squatters and professional activists, professional climate activists, by the fact that they lost their homes after the floods in 2022, and no one came for them, no one came to help them, no one supported them.
Or they're living in their van and meeting Tom.
That's why they're in that fight now.
Yeah, I have a fucking better idea than demolishing the houses people have to fucking live in. Build some fucking houses. Fix the houses. We've also got the fucking Melbourne state government at the moment talking about how they're going to be demolishing a bunch of public housing. And we found out this week they're not going to involve public housing in the rebuild.
Yeah, they finally admitted it. Like, we all knew that, but now they're like, yeah, actually, we aren't doing that.
It is.
Yeah.
I can't stress enough that this is because people in the Labor and Liberal government fucking hate you. They're not indifferent. There is this idea that politicians and rich people are indifferent to the common folk, to poor people, to people that need help. And they're not indifferent. This heuristic has helped me a lot. But if you think about all of their actions through the lens of they hate me as much as I hate someone like a neo-Nazi, it all fucking clicks. They despise uneducated people. They despise poor people. They feel like they get in the way of them being able to govern as they see fit, which is fiddling with laws for businesses. You ask them a question in public, you demand action from your representatives, and they fucking dislike having to work for you because they think you're scum. That's why Chris Minns is going to demolish these fucking houses that people need instead of providing fucking housing for them in my hometown, where I and thousands of other people in my year at school, we've all left. And now we have to fucking look at a government, turn its back on the community and go, nah, fuck off. We don't care.
Yeah.
Disgusting. And as I have said to every single one of these politicians, and I will say again, may you and your fucking family feel this level of desperation so you need to squat one day too. You fucking reprehensible, decrepit cunts.
Yay.
Fuck off the lot of you. I fucking cannot stand these cunts.
Yeah, you're right. Mitch is right. It's not that they haven't heard about you or you haven't had a representative get into their ear yet, you know what I mean? Or they just need to be told what's going on. No, they do know what's going on. And as Mitch said, they hate it.
Didn't realize I needed to get that off my chest.
You're right, buddy.
I was like, I'm not.
Yeah,
this is the fucking thing.
Think positive thoughts.
But this is what's really fucking weird, and this is how personal it is for me. In high school, I had I think she was a year 9 or 10 English teacher, and I was a fucking, I was a shitty student. It was terrible. To the point where one time we had this back and forth where she was like, not a single word from you. And I went, okay. And she said, not one more. And I went, yep. And we did that for like 3 minutes. I was such an asshole. I was such a piece of shit. She's now the elected Greens member in that area at the state level. And one time when I went on the drum, she retweeted and she was like, hell yeah, go Mitch, but couldn't find me. So tagged my band.
That's great.
Which was fucking cool.
See.
Dude, like this is how close it is for me as like one of the only politicians in the area. And I know she fucking cares about the area. Like she was my fucking English teacher. And the shit that she's up against while these fucking soulless ghouls come across and they're like, we're going to prioritize finally developing Lismore. And by that, I mean, we're going to demolish the only homes people can still live in. There is evil in the world is the problem. And I think the sooner we can recognize that, the sooner some of us can take actions I can't legally talk about. On the Anyway. All right. On to cheery news.
This is all related. You're about to say some very related stuff.
Yeah, the security guards. That's what cheery news.
Yeah, we're talking about the same thing, guys.
It turns out this next story is I'm the reason why they're hiring security. This thing came from me, and I've got like a couple of these stories sort of cascade in my mind into each other and from each other. But this first one is a story that came out only a couple of days ago where Melbourne City Council is hiring security guards to travel with like council law officers, specifically because Nick Rees, Lord Mayor, has said because Victorian police haven't honoured his request for a couple more cops to follow those people around, and because there's been instances that require more sort of police presence. And the instances that they're talking about are there's been a couple of instances of violence. Okay, in our current system, what you do is you look for the cops for that. I can see that from a centre-left neoliberal point of view. Also, the horrible and terror-inducing act of begging is something that they listed as why they need private security guards to be patrolling the streets who are empowered to restrain people.
To eliminate vagrants. This is like some Judge Dredd shit. It really is.
Isn't it? It's like they are empowered to kneel into the backs of people until cops arrive to arrest them. For what? For asking for money when they have none.
Yeah.
And I just can't help but fucking think that maybe there's a couple of other better initiatives that Melbourne City Council could spend that fucking money on.
Less expensive ones too than buying private security guards.
It's fucking insane. So there was this quote that there were 37 reported incidents of violence towards council staff on the streets in 2023 and 2024. So that's a little over one a month.
And by council staff, like, we know what that means.
What does it mean?
That's like ticket inspectors.
Mm-hmm. Like why? Like why are these people having acts of violence committed against them? Because they're on ostensibly frontline services in instances where they come into contact with people who are not well. I'm gonna say, if you're begging, you're not having a good fucking day to start with. No one decides to go and do that because shit's going well. Yeah. I feel like these are fixable problems. We could put money into instead of getting security guards to beat the people that cause these problems. Why not just eliminate the fucking problems? What a novel concept.
Well, I have noticed there's significantly more people begging around in and around the CBD of Melbourne since, say, in the days of the pandemic. And there's two options here. That's either happening because people are greedier than they used to be. The poors are greedier. Or because they have less support and less housing opportunity and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
I think I know
Yeah.
what it is.
Do you lot remember when COVID hit and the government was engaging private security in order to police essentially the quarantine program? And where this really hit the public consciousness, I feel, is when those security guards who were outsourced upon outsourced and hired via WhatsApp then took COVID out into the community and we had the second wave. That was when it was really potent. But, I was asking questions about the use of private security back then. I just kind of do remember, though, that at the same time this was going on, there was a massive cleanup of homelessness undertaken by the state government, and they actually housed a bunch of homeless people in hotels for about 10 months.
Yep.
They did. I remember that.
There was a bunch of people that became not unhoused people after that because they had access to the bare minimum facilities they need to get themselves back on their fucking feet, get jobs, get a community, get help with whatever it is that they needed. Yeah. Turns out when people lack something essential, just fucking giving them the thing helps.
Who'd have thought?
It's shocking fucking concept, but it helps, turns out.
Oh, it's just like, what a waste of time, what a waste of money. Like the problem is the state needs people experiencing homelessness for capitalism to continue. It needs something or someone for us to point at and say, hey, this could be you if you don't just do the right thing, obey the laws of the state. If you make a poor choice in life, this will be you, not some circumstance that you grew up in. Like, it needs that threat to keep us all dancing their stupid little dance. And when there are too many people that they forgot about, the way that the state deals with it is not, let's actually reduce that number a little bit. We only need some people to point at to keep that threat in place. The state responds with more and more violence, and instead of spending less money addressing the problem, they spend heaps more to do the show of force, to do the, Lenin writes about special bodies of armed men. That alienates the state from the rest of us. Like, that's what they spend the money on. Way more money than it would cost to just reduce the number of people or completely eliminate the number of people experiencing these issues. Yeah. Infuriating.
Yeah.
Why are so many people so comfortable with this continual these continual policing agendas and the outsourcing of policing agendas, politicians essentially currying favour by saying that they're going to police us more. We have seen tough on crime over and over again as an election tactic.
Yeah, by Labor, by the Liberals. Like, they're just Oh,
Why does everyone think that they're under threat all the time and it's perfectly acceptable to outsource? Like PSOs this kind of came about because they got rid of ticket inspectors on trams and were looking for some way to police public transport when you're not going to pay somebody to actually issue tickets. Like, you know.
I have a working theory on this related to this second thing I wanted to talk about. In that going up from Melbourne City Council to the state level, see how like, it's unfolding here. I've written a story. I'm taking us on a journey. I'm a podcaster. Fucking Melbourne State government, Labor, by the way, introducing tough new bail laws. Tough new bail laws. They're getting rid of putting kids in custody and in jail and giving them bail. That used to be something that judges had to consider as a last resort, and that consideration is now no longer there. That judges can just go, look, let's lock some kids up. But just to jump ahead a little bit, this was fucking wild to me, considering where I heard it before. But there was this Guardian article talking about these new laws, and Anthony Cayenne Flon, I'm not exactly sure, and I won't apologize, he's Labor, was talking about, he was giving comment about these new laws and why they're needed, because he stood up in Parliament. And all these journalists were talking about this as if it was like, there's division within the Labor ranks, as if it wasn't fucking pre-planned to give cover to the other Labor parties. Like, even our members are wanting us to work on this. Look how serious this is. So he was deigned to be the person that would stand up in this very fake pantomime of politics to say every Victorian has the right to feel and be safe in their homes, their streets, their workplace, and neighbourhoods. We need more tougher bail laws, blah, blah, blah. And he's gone on to say, my constituents continue to welcome stronger criminal justice and bail reforms, a further crackdown on serious, dangerous, violent and repeat offenders, ongoing support to help Victoria Police increase its powers, resources, presence and patrols across the community. And as this article points out, Ciaflon, who represents the marginal seat of Pascoe Vale in Melbourne's inner north, acknowledged that the crime rate in his electorate is actually lower than the state average. Yet, despite this, there is a perception crime is growing out of control. Where might your constituents get that perception, cunt? Is it because certain politicians are standing up in Parliament and then giving comment to fucking journos and media outlets saying that crime is a problem? Who could fucking say where they're getting the perception from, mate? It's confected. It's bullshit. And what's wild to me is that if you remember Newt Gingrich in America, he trotted out this exact line in 2016. He said the exact same fucking thing.
Violent crime is down. The economy is ticking up.
It is not down in the biggest cities.
Violent crime murder rate is down.
Then how come it's up in Chicago, up in Baltimore, and up in Washington?
There are pockets where certainly we have not tackled
your national
murder
capital, your third biggest city.
But violent crime across the country is down.
The average American, I will bet you this morning, does not think crime is down, does not think they are safer.
But it is. We are safer, and it is down.
No, that's your view. I just told no.
These are the national FBI facts.
But what I said is also what I said is also a fact. Current view is that liberals have a whole set of statistics which theoretically may be right, but it's not where human beings are.
But what you're saying is, but hold on, Mr. Speaker, because you're saying liberals use these numbers, they use this sort of magic math. This is the FBI statistics. They're not a liberal organization.
No,
they're a crime
but what I said is equally true. People feel more threatened.
Yes, they feel it, but the facts don't support it.
As a political candidate, I'll go with how people feel, and I'll let you go with the theoreticians.
Hey, Mitch from the future here. Just letting you know that the only clip of this I could find was from the John Oliver show, which is why you can hear a bunch of people laughing, carrying on and enjoy themselves, confident in the idea that Hillary Clinton is about to be elected and all this tomfoolery is about to end. Voters feel like crime is getting out of control. It's not. The statistics say something else, but voters feel like crime is getting worse. And he says specifically, and I'm a politician, so I'm going to go with what people feel, which is the weakest, most spineless position a so-called leader could take is when they follow people.
Yeah. Well, it's lucrative and it's compelling for political and media mongering purposes to continue to propel people into an ongoing sense of fear about crime. But the world that I grew up in was in the left, or from a left perspective, watching, say, America with its mandatory sentencing laws, and watching the way that they disproportionately, say in California, targeted the black community, 3 strikes and you're out, that kind of thing, and reading about the demonstrated effect that had of simply keeping poor, disenfranchised people more poor, more disenfranchised, and in fact propelling them into a life of crime once they get out of their disproportionately long jail sentence after 3, possession offences or what have you. And all of those things were demonstrated to have an effect of simply entrenching crime in poorer communities. Well, we know that to be the case, but we are jettisoning everything that we know right now because populism is so much more easily waged. It's like more easily deployed as a campaign tactic, as an electoral tactic, as a media selling tactic. With the legacy media sort of falling by the wayside as like hysterical, shrill, social and independent journalism. They're in this race to the bottom to try and eke whatever money can still be eked out of of beating up stories about the poors and the criminals. We're in a world where we're jettisoning everything we know about the negative effects, and the useless effects in terms of actually reducing crime. It's not relevant. It's not actually working. We already know that, but we're just aiming in the direction of populism anyway. It's a fucking dire world situation we're in.
Well, it's nothing new. I just I think about people know that I've got a massive brain crush on Stuart Hall and his whole policing the crisis stuff, which was looking at, Afro-Caribbean migration and the demonization of those populations in order to bring in more repressive surveillance policies, curry favour for the current government and build their support base and get a compliant public to nod along saying, yes, this is a real problem. Brown people are trying to steal my handbag. We need more of this happening. People, why aren't people asking questions about that 5 decades down the track? Why is this still such a robust tactic that is used over and over again? And, I think that Australia and its environment, where essentially demonizing other people, whether it's working class, whether it's people of colour, policies that have existed did exist for decades here, make a public that is actually very uniquely susceptible to swallowing this shit. They do like this idea of more policing and this weird sort of nostalgic, things have changed so much. Back in my day, we didn't have these problems, when in actual fact...
I'm talking about the bail stuff for a sec, from like a, from a liberal perspective. And it's like, so like the idea of bail is, you've been charged, you haven't been found guilty. So then a judge or a magistrate decides whether you stay in prison before you go to before you're found guilty, or you go back out into the community because you're a risk and whatever. And the laws, there was always a presumption against bail, which is a bit stupid. But like the laws. Yeah. Anyways, it was a thing. The judge had a bit of discretion to be able to decide that. And what we're seeing now is the Labor government trying to erode even more and more of that judicial discretion. And the judicial discretion exists because of this, fundamental Westminster liberal idea, which is that the power of the state should be separated into three branches: the legislature, those that we elect and write the laws; the executive, the ministers that kind of enforce the laws; and then also the judiciary, which interpret the law. So the idea being that there's 3, so that one can't gather too much power, and that's so we don't get fascism. That's the reason that they're separated. So the erosion of one power, the judiciary, to put it into the executive or into the legislature, which is exactly what these new bail laws are. It's a fundamental erosion of a liberal democracy, which is already a flawed democracy. but
Yeah.
it's quite literally a step towards fascism. And in the meantime, what we're doing is in Victoria, we're building new remand centres, like new prisons to hold people who have not yet been found guilty of a crime, which are overwhelmingly Aboriginal people, overwhelmingly, like now, children, which is wild. And yeah, we're like, you know what? We're going to spend quite literally $1 billion to make the new Ravenhall one, or the new expansion for the Ravenhall one, just to put Aboriginal people in cages before we've even found them guilty. That's what we're doing. And also, by the way, judges used to be able to have a say, a little bit of a say. You can't do that anymore. I've made the decision that I'm going to put more Aboriginal people in a cage in Victoria. Thanks for playing champions.
Yeah.
It's infuriating.
Yeah.
There should be a worry for people should worry when they hear that politicians can decide who gets locked up and for how long. That is fascism. If you take that to the logical conclusion, Jordan, I think people tend to think that we can be hyperbolic when we say that's a literal step towards fascism. But in the same way,
quite literally is, yeah.
But that's like universal healthcare for everyone that covers dental and mental. That would be a literal step towards socialism. That's just what that is. Politics is this incremental steps either side, and sometimes the steps can be bigger or smaller. But that's what it is. When politicians decide who is in jail for how long, as opposed to the people who are supposed to do that job. I don't want to give someone like Peter Dutton the ability to decide that. That's why we don't have laws there. But I also don't want fucking Adam Ban to have that power.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of this system. This is then you're like rusted on neoliberal liberals are supposed to be the ones that love this system that we've got. And like you keep saying, Celeste, they're the ones that keep fucking eating this up too. I would hazard a guess because they don't come into contact with crime all that often. They don't come into contact with the cops. So they just see it happening in an abstract way. They believe these politicians that use it to stoke fear and to get votes. And this is how we just get these slides into fascism because it's like, well, it doesn't actually affect me. I'm fine with this happening. It's just bad people it happens to. And it's not. It's people the state doesn't like, which is very fucking different.
Yeah.
The other thing as well is that locking up kids increases the amount of youth crime.
Yeah.
That's just not debatable. That is just a fact. The more time children spend in contact with any type of law enforcement or judiciary or prison increases their recidivism. Sorry, that's just what, if we want to stop youth crime, if we want to stop people reoffending at a young age, we don't send them to prison, we rehabilitate them. And I don't know if anyone listening was ever a child, but I was, and I was a fucking idiot. My brain wasn't fucking developed fully. I didn't know what I was doing. And I was lucky enough to be in a supportive situation where I never fucking went to jail. Why the fuck are we locking these people up to give them the only skill set, the only community that they have are other hardened criminals who are older and also stuck in this fucking bullshit system? Yeah. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and it does actually fly in the face of the pushes to raise age of criminality and all this sort of stuff. Like, what is the point of those campaigns if this is going to be an outcome that happens?
Yeah. And what in maybe 10 years or whatever, when the Liberals maybe get back in Victoria, like, what the fuck are they going to have left to do? Like, Labor already did all their things for them.
Yeah. Yeah, they'll be... Well, I mean, that's the culture war shit.
Yeah.
That's the thing, is that, like, Labor have seeded the ground at state and federal levels so hard that the only thing that the Liberal Party can do now is culture war shit. Like, I would hope that they would have some sort of like big business tax.
Yeah, policy-wise, they're exactly the same.
Yeah, they should have a big business tax that they're trying to repeal, or a fucking carbon tax they don't like, or something like that. Like, how far we've fallen from even the lowliest lows of the fucking Rudd years.
Yeah, even the pathetic Labor ones,
when they had like a mining tax and a carbon tax, and we don't even have that
stupid
anymore.
They're fucking, like, as a public servant, you know, my union's like, Dutton's going to cut public service jobs, blah, 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 I can't elect him. Jacinta's doing the exact same thing already. Like, in the Northern Territory election, you know, whatever the racist ones are over there, the Liberals probably, they're like, you know, tough on crime, blah, 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 blah. Jacinta's doing the exact same thing here. And, you know, Labor went hard on, this is really bad, you know, we shouldn't do that. Like, fucking in the Queensland election, Labor was like, you know, the Liberals are going to take away your rights to abortion, and all that kind of thing. South Australian Labor politicians, you know, voting against the woman's right to choose and have safe healthcare and abortions. Like, what the fuck? You are the same. You are exactly the same. And eventually, when you lose all the power that you've craved for so long, they're going to have nothing to do. I'm sorry.
Well, one last piece of Labor are the same as Liberal. Bringing it up to the federal level now for me is this. The news comes off of the back that it turns out an apparent terror plot against Jewish Australians where a van was filled with explosives. Turns out it was fake. And when I say turns out, I mean people were saying it was fake from the fucking start.
Yeah.
Everyone could see it was fucking fake.
And remember, it wasn't just that people thought that. The New South Wales Police pretty much said that from day dot. That's why everyone thought they were like, oh, but we don't think it's actually terror. And we don't think it's actually anti-Semitism. They said that from the moment they revealed that.
Yeah. Usually that shit comes out like across social media. People like us see things and citizen journalists, and then some journalists get small lines somewhere and we start to put things together. This was from the fucking start. The authorities were like, ooh, don't know about this one. This is pretty on the nose. So that happened. And then Labor, in lockstep with Liberals, people were talking about how they caved to the Liberals. They didn't cave. They fucking love doing this. At the federal level, federal introduced a bunch of fucking new laws with mandatory minimum sentencing and shit, with Liberal Party going, fuck yeah, we want to do that. Which, like you said, Jordan, they've got nothing to do now because these laws passed, right? And it was all this pearl clutching about anti-Semitism, about this spate of anti-Semitism. Holy fuck. We need to make sure that we stamp this down. So we need to pass laws that the Liberal Party fucking love. Then just realized, oh no, it's come out that the van bombing was a fake. Turns out a bunch of these ones look like they were fake, like a whole spate of anti-Semitic attacks across Sydney, where like people were spray painting terrible shit on the side of cars and like driving them into places and shit, pouring fake blood all over houses of Jewish Australians. It was fucking heinous. Turns out it was a concerted effort by some group who we don't know yet, has been paying people to do that, it seems like, right? The main point being that this anti-Semitism was basically confected. It wasn't grassroots anti-Semitism. It wasn't Australians rising up in small little like terror cells to do this. And so Labor have come out and said, well, we were duped, so we're going to repeal these laws as quick as we can because we instantiated...
Wait, are they going to repeal them?
No, not at all. I was joking.
Oh, yeah, that's what I was like, what the fuck?
There's no fucking way, Jordan.
Like, holy shit.
There's no fucking way.
Well, I listened to Tony Burke saying the other day, this is 2 days ago, he was on the ABC, and he said, I'm glad now that we know all these physical and violent expressions of anti-Semitism were actually just being orchestrated by organised crime. Now we know these expressions aren't violent expressions of anti-Semitism in Australia, in the Australian community. But now it's the Australian community who have to deal with all the laws that have been introduced. Exactly. We've got to deal with that now. Now we can't go near a fucking place of worship, even if that place of worship is holding an expressly political, far-right fucking Zionist land grab conference. You know, they can do whatever they like in there, but you do a rally near there, well, that's a hate crime. We'll throw you in jail. You know, you get done and he's going to do a mandatory minimum sentencing. It's shocking. It's shocking, isn't it?
And like the craziest part about it is like the AFP saying, you know, this is confected, made up. Foreign interests and whatever designed to change the laws in Australia, and you know they knew that from day one, particularly with the New South Wales Joint AFP ASIO operation, whatever they're called. So this is fake. It was designed to change the laws. The government changed the laws and have now acknowledged it's fake. So like that, and that's the end of the story. That's like, well done, guys. They did their job. They got exactly what they wanted. We don't negotiate with terrorists. We just do exactly what they want us to do. There's no need to negotiate. It's fucking wild.
Yeah.
You know, there's this thing at the moment where we were talking a little while ago, and I think this was because of Nick McKenzie's interview with Mike Burgess in late February. We were talking about this notion that the organised crime was working or was influenced by foreign state actors to get these anti-Semitic attacks going. Well, but the latest that I'm hearing, you know, from this sort of AFP, this Joint Counter-Terrorism Task Force thing, when I listened over it carefully again, it sounded like, no, not foreign state actors per se, just the foreign wings of the organised crime. So maybe what they're sort of trying to say, this sounds like at the moment, is organised crime in Australia with foreign elements doing what it does many times before, which is it has certain crimes, some confected, waiting in the wings to essentially offer up as bargaining chips. Oh, well, you know what? We can help you out. We know this about this and that and the other. And they can see, because this is bipartisan obsession with violent anti-Semitism that doesn't exist at the moment, they could see that there. They're like, well, why don't we make some violent anti-Semitism and we can use that as a bargaining chip? And that's what it sounds like is happening, you know? The shocking thing is that it sounds like Peter Dutton just didn't. He thought, well, if I don't hear that from security professionals like ASIO or the AFP, if I don't hear that directly, then I don't have to interrupt my constant beating of the drum about violent anti-Semitism. So he just didn't go to the briefings, and then he just went to the press.
Is that worse though? Is that worse not going to the briefings than going to the briefings and knowing that what you're doing is exactly what they want? And then still doing it anyway. Which one's worse?
Yeah. Which is worse?
I feel like the not going is worse because he fucking knows anyway. Like they go to the briefings like that to be seen.
But then they both know.
Yeah, they do. That's the thing. Anyone who's saying at the moment that the leader of the opposition and then the prime minister and the cabinet didn't know
day
what was
one.
it? Bullshit. Of course they fucking know.
And that's why you won't tell us when we ask you in Senate estimates when you knew.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's just this like politicians always try to do this plausible deniability shit as if they're just like sweet little lambs just bumbling between meetings and Senate estimates and stuff being like, oh, I just heard. What is this? I will look into this so quick. Oh, I didn't hear about this months ago. I had no idea this was going on. Oh, you're telling me it's like Trump doing that when the fucking Ruth Bader Ginsburg died and he's like, she just died? Wow. I didn't know that. You're telling me now for the first time. She led an amazing life. You're telling me this for the first time right now. I'm hearing this right now for the first time. It's like, shut the fuck up. Shut up. Yeah, no, it's fucking wild that they, like you saw them do it a lot through COVID. Again, state, federal levels, is that they look at opportunities like this and they just rub their hands together like, fuck yeah, we can do some shit we've wanted to do for a while. The politician mind is one that will look at a tragedy and instantly connect it to some almost unrelated thing. Oh, fuck, I can help my lobbyist mates out with that. I can help these businesses that have been asking for this with this certain thing. Fuck yeah. Yeah, let's go. And like, so it doesn't even need to be a fucking, a government plot to do this shit. Because as soon as it comes out, they will jump on it anyway. And they will remain plausibly deniable about the whole thing the whole time.
All these fucking laws that we got out of this as well. I can't think of a single one that came from an authentic... You know, like the WhatsApp doxing thing. I mean, you know, I have my reservations and my concerns, some of which I voiced publicly at the time about the way that data was handled. You know, the people sort of released it. I said this at the time. We all had a scrap about it. It's in the past now. But, I felt that given that our political opponents in anti-Zionism are the most adept bullshit artists in the fucking world, the Hasburists, given how good they are at that, I thought, well, attaching people's personal identities, even if they just deal with view profiles, to the spreadsheet that got released along with the chat log, bad idea, But it was a bad idea. We could see how bad idea it was in that it took 4 fucking days to get it to Albanese, who announced anti-doxing rules. So, we know that we're dealing with adept bullshit artists and PR spin people in the form of our Hasburist opposition when we engage in not just anti-Zionism, but like anti-genocide action, as we have done. So Still, though, it was just an airing of a WhatsApp group. You know what I mean? They actually did redact the numbers from. We still got anti-doxing laws. So that wasn't an authentic thing putting the Jewish community in peril. It was putting a few scheming fucking Zionists in peril. There was that. None of these violent expressions of anti-Semitism for the past few months are real. They were all a bunch of fucking paid organised crime hoaxes to get them out of trouble, apparently. None of these things are real. How many fucking laws have we got out of this bullshit?
Let's look at the fucking converse of this. Someone had a fake bomb put on their car for flying a Palestinian flag. And that did nothing. That moved no needle. Yeah. No laws were rushed through 4 days in.
Yeah.
And
no one was interested.
No one, I mean, people were fucking interested.
We were interested.
And you're right.
Yeah.
Politicians couldn't find a way to use that to their advantage, so they did fucking nothing with it. Like, if we're going to be passing any sort of laws about this sort of shit, I would have thought in a civilized society, it's when a fucking bomb threat, and a legitimate bomb threat, whether or not it was a real bomb or not, it looked fucking legit. It was placed on some cunt's car, and it was specifically about a flag. You get much more terroristic than that. Yeah. And it was nothing. Also, people, the fucking, what's his name? Hash had his house firebombed. Yep, had his house firebombed, and he's being charged with these hate speech laws in Victoria for chanting.
Was it insulting language? That's the crime? Insulting language. Incredible.
For saying that all Zionists are terrorists.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which they are. I mean, I think we can all say that on here, that all Zionists are terrorists.
I just do not understand why I mean, look, we've talked about it for a whole episode. I do understand how it is the way it is. But leftists need to really start looking at how these things are used as opposed to how we're told they're going to be used.
Yeah.
We need to start internalizing that more. And disengaged people need to start engaging with this shit a bit more and realizing where any of these laws will be fucking put. We have talked about this with the Nazi salute shit. We're now talking about it at the state and federal level with their bail laws, minimum mandatory sentencing, hate speech laws. All of it will be put against people who work against state interests, not against fucking terrorists.
Can I make a little plug while we're here, not for myself, but for what I consider to be the two best sources, ongoing sources, that aren't on social media, mind you. I just don't think there's much point recommending people, even if there's this amazing people who do work on social media, but you can't go back on these big tech fucking social media platforms. They just become an algorithmic soup, you know? Any post that you did more than 4 days ago is all but inaccessible, you know what I mean? So it's no point. But the two sources that I find the most rewarding and informative are Alex McKinnon's Everything is Fine blog on Beehive. You do have to be a paid subscriber for that, but you know what I mean? If you want to find out about Hasbara and Zionist disinformation in Australia from someone who's dedicated their work to an ongoing basis. Well, I just did an annual subscription of $100 the other day. Very overdue, but nonetheless, I do recommend to get into Alex's work. And also Abraham Edwards on Medium, another excellent source. That one's free, you know, to register with Abraham's Medium blog. Excellent source for this stuff. You know, I'm so informed because of those two sources. And we did talk about where do we get our media from? Well, if it comes to like, you know, ongoing Zionist, lobbyist, collusion with government and justice to repress anti-genocide activism in Australia, they're my two best sources. So I recommend them to everyone here because we all need to stay informed. And you just can't do it otherwise. You cannot get a good information about this from any establishment media. Not a single source. It stuns me to say that, but it's literally true. There is no sort, not the ABC, not the SBS, this, that, the other. None of them are doing proper ongoing coverage of this thing. And it's very gaslighting stuff. It makes you go fucking mad. So swallow these sources because you're going to have to do that work yourself and you've got to follow independent sources to find out about this stuff. You just will not ever be informed otherwise, shockingly.
I have a call to action. I want to do more of these as we get to the end of episodes. And if you've listened all this way, thanks. Hi, welcome to the end of the episode. You've done well. Here's my call to action this week. Call Lord Mayor Nick Rees, call the office and register your concern that they have private security guards policing the streets of Melbourne, which we didn't talk about before, but in the promo shots that they used, these Gronks had thin blue line patches, a little white supremacy patch, really to tie the whole thing up, which as I said online, I'm not confident that people with thin blue line patches are the safest, most level-headed people to be given the powers to restrain people on the street. I think these dry wall punching knuckle draggers might make bad decisions if they're comfortable wearing thin blue line patches, a patch which is supposed to represent the protection cops provide when they're not even fucking cops. You're security guards. But anyway, call Nick Reese's office. You can find his contact details online. The number is 03 9658 9704. You will get someone who is a public servant. Be nice to them, but register your concern. And I'm saying this about Lord Mayor Nick Reese instead of federal and state Labor, because at a very small scale, these things magnify. They are better. You can register your complaints, and as you can imagine, they don't get many fucking complaints. So if a lot of us call this guy and just say, hey, it's really fucking terrifying that you have a private company is empowered to police my streets in Melbourne. I don't like that. This pilot program sucks. I feel unsafe. Apply the political pressure that way. That gives Greens the power to start applying pressure to them in different ways. It gives us an ability to maybe reverse this. I don't have fucking faith that we can reverse legislation at a federal level until we get a minority government, because there's no majors coming up in this next election. But that's my call to action. Call Lord Mayor Nick Reese's office and register a complaint about this. And if you want to shoot us an email, you certainly can. alpdotgov@proton.me. I swear one day we will start reading these questions out online, but the chats are just too good.
Send them through. Send them through, guys. We'll get there.
The chatting's too good. But eventually, I mean, maybe we can even just save them up and just do a question episode every so often.
I like that idea. But we'll get there.
But the emails that have been coming through are fucking great. We read them all. We have had some really good discussions off mic without you. You don't get this. We just have these conversations because we're friends.
We're special.
But keep sending them through, and eventually we will read them out. And share this podcast with a bunch of people, not online or also online, but share actual word of mouth. When you're talking to someone about stuff, be like, hey, there's this sick as fuck podcast I've been listening to. It's called The Dollop. If you like The Dollop, you might also like Radical on the Leftist Pipeline podcast. It's real good. Anyway, I've talked too much. See ya.
See you next week.